My name is Rachel Monroe. I was once the wife of a prestigious doctor, once the daughter-in-law of one of Charleston's most powerful families. But what no one knew was that I had been quietly raising a child rejected by her own blood, a child who carried their name but was never truly accepted, until the day I brought the truth to light, right in the middle of a garden party they would never forget. Before I share my story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. If you've ever been cast aside by family and stood back up for someone you love, hit like and subscribe. Because trust me, you'll want to hear what happened next. Nothing prepared me for the sight of my daughter barefoot, scrubbing blood-red jam from the kitchen tiles. Alone. I stood frozen in the doorway of the Whitmore mansion, my carry-on bag slipping from my shoulder. The early afternoon sun streamed through the lace curtains, casting delicate shadows across Chloe's small frame as she worked on her hands and knees, a bucket of murky water beside her. "Chloe?" My voice cracked. She looked up, and for a moment, I saw fear flash across her face before recognition dawned. "Mom? You're not supposed to be here until tomorrow." I crossed the room in 3 strides, pulling her into my arms. Her hands were raw, fingernails rimmed with dirt. The sharp smell of bleach made my eyes water. "Baby, where is everyone? They took Savannah to the spring festival." Her voice was small, muffled against my shoulder. "I couldn't go because I made a mess at breakfast. Grandma Beatrice said I had to clean it all up before they got back." My stomach twisted. The spring festival was in Folly Beach, at least 6 hours round trip. "How long have they been gone?" "Since 9 this morning." I checked my phone. 3:47 p.m., nearly 7 hours. My 9-year-old daughter had been alone, scrubbing floors like some Victorian-era servant for 7 hours. The rage that flooded through me was quiet, controlled, the kind that comes from years of swallowing similar indignities. But this time was different. This time, they'd crossed a line I couldn't ignore. I helped Chloe to her feet, noticing how she winced. "Come on, sweetheart, we're leaving." "But Grandma said..." "I don't care what she said." I kept my voice gentle, though inside I was screaming. "You're coming with me." As I packed Chloe's things, my mind raced through the warning signs I'd ignored. The separate birthday parties, lavish affairs for Savannah, quiet dinners for Chloe. The Christmas morning when Chloe's stocking was noticeably lighter. The way Beatrice's mouth would purse whenever she looked at my daughter, as if she'd tasted something sour. I'd made excuses. Told myself it was just Beatrice being Beatrice. Old Southern aristocracy clinging to outdated notions of bloodlines and propriety. After all, Chloe wasn't a real Whitmore. She was my sister's daughter, taken in after the accident that stole Sarah from us both. Not blood to them, just an obligation their son's ex-wife had foolishly undertaken. But leaving a child alone? Making her scrub floors while they paraded their biological granddaughter around town? This wasn't just prejudice, this was cruelty. As we drove away from the mansion, Chloe curled up in the passenger seat, her eyes already growing heavy. I'd driven straight from my consulting job in Atlanta, planning to surprise everyone by arriving early. The surprise, it turned out, was mine. "Mom?" Chloe's voice was drowsy. "Did I do something wrong?" I reached over, smoothing her dark hair, so like Sarah's. "No, baby. You did nothing wrong. Some people they just don't know how to love right." She was asleep before we reached the highway, and I was grateful. It meant she couldn't see the tears streaming down my face or hear the promises I whispered into the gathering dusk. Promises that things would change, that I would protect her, that the Whitmores would never hurt her again. The Charleston heat was already oppressive at 8 in the morning as I sat across from Chloe at our hotel breakfast table. She picked at her pancakes, that new quietness still clinging to her like morning fog. It had been 3 days since I'd found her scrubbing those floors, and she'd barely spoken about it. "Sweetheart," I started gently, "we need to talk about what happened at Grandma Beatrice's." Her fork stilled. "Are we going back?" "Not to stay, but I need to understand some things. Has this happened before? Being left alone?" She nodded slowly. "Sometimes, when they take Savannah places, Grandma says I need to learn responsibility." Responsibility. The word tasted bitter. I thought back to my marriage to Jonathan Whitmore. 5 years that felt like 50. How had I been so blind? Jonathan had seemed perfect at first. A prominent cardiologist, old Charleston family, charitable and refined. My interior design business was just taking off in New York when we met at a medical conference I was redesigning spaces for. He pursued me with southern charm and promises of a life filled with grace and tradition. What I got instead was a gilded cage. The Whitmore family ruled their social circle with invisible iron fists. Beatrice, Jonathan's mother, was the quintessential Southern matriarch. Pearl-wearing, soft-spoken, and absolutely ruthless. She'd made it clear from day one that I was an outsider, a Yankee who'd somehow ensnared her precious son. But I could have lived with that. What broke us was Chloe. When Sarah died in that accident 3 years into my marriage, taking custody of her daughter wasn't even a question for me. She was family. She was 2 years old, traumatized, and needed love. Jonathan's response had been clinical, cold. "We're not equipped for this, Rachel. There are excellent facilities. She's my niece, my sister's child. She's not our responsibility." That word again, responsibility. As if love could be reduced to obligation. The divorce had been swift and, thankfully, civilized. Jonathan didn't fight it. I think he was relieved. But somehow, through legal maneuvering I still didn't fully understand, the Whitmores had gotten partial custody rights. For the child's stability, the judge had said. To maintain family connections. What a joke. "Mom?" Chloe's voice pulled me back. "Why doesn't Grandma Beatrice like me?" How do you explain prejudice to a 9-year-old? How do you tell her that some people's hearts are so small they can only love what mirrors them exactly? It's not about you, baby. Some people, they think family only means blood. But you and me? We know better, don't we? She gave me a small smile, the first real one in days. "Like how you chose me?" Exactly like that. But even as I reassured her, my mind was turning over darker thoughts. The signs had been there all along. The way Beatrice would introduce Savannah as my granddaughter, but Chloe as Rachel's ward. The separate table at Thanksgiving where Chloe sat with the help's children. The birthday card that arrived late, store-bought and generic, while Savannah received heirloom jewelry. Each slight had seemed small, explainable. Jonathan's family was old-fashioned. They needed time to adjust. I'd made excuses because the alternative, that they were systematically emotional abusing my child, was too horrible to contemplate. But no more. "Pack your things," I told Chloe. "We're going to find our own place here for a while. We're staying in Charleston, just long enough to sort some things out, to make sure this never happens again." She reached across the table, her small hand covering mine. "I love you, Mom. I love you too, baby, more than all the stars." It was our thing. Sarah's and mine, passed down to Chloe. More than all the stars. And I meant it. Blood or no blood, she was mine to protect. The Whitmores had made a grave mistake. They'd shown me who they really were. Now it was time to show them who I was. A mother who would move heaven and earth for her child. The cottage I rented sat on Sullivan's Island, far enough from the Whitmore mansion to breathe but close enough to fight. White clapboard walls, wraparound porch, and the sound of waves at night. It should have been peaceful. But Chloe's newfound silence filled every corner like smoke. She'd started drawing. Endless pictures of what she called invisible people. Figures with no faces, standing at the edges of rooms. Dr. Martinez, the child psychologist I'd found, said it was her way of processing feeling unseen. Children who experience emotional neglect often feel like ghosts in their own lives, she'd explained. Chloe's artwork suggests she's internalized the message that she doesn't belong. 3 weeks had passed since the floor scrubbing incident. My lawyer, Patricia Chen, was building our case for full custody, but it was an uphill battle. "The Whitmores have connections," Patricia warned during our latest meeting. "Judge Harrison golfs with Jonathan. The family's donated to half the city's charities. We need more than one incident." What about the pattern of neglect? The emotional abuse? Harder to prove. They'll claim cultural differences, generational parenting styles. We need documentation. So I started documenting. Every story Chloe shared, every memory that surfaced. The picture that emerged was heartbreaking. There was the Easter when Chloe was 6. Beatrice had organized an elaborate egg hunt for Savannah's friends. Chloe was told she could participate if she helped hide the eggs first. But when the hunt began, Beatrice held her back. Helpers don't hunt, dear. That wouldn't be fair to the guests. Or Chloe's 7th birthday, when Beatrice threw Savannah a half-birthday party the same day, complete with pony rides and a cotton candy machine. Chloe's celebration was relegated to a store-bought cupcake after dinner. Each story was a small cruelty, designed to remind Chloe of her place. Not family, not real, just borrowed. The worst part was how Chloe told these stories, matter-of-factly, without self-pity. She'd normalized it, accepted that this was just how things were for kids like her. Kids like me don't get pony rides, she'd said one evening, and I'd had to leave the room to cry. Jonathan had reached out twice since I'd taken Chloe. Stiff, formal emails about visitation schedules and maintaining stability. He hadn't asked once how she was doing, but it was Thursday afternoon when everything shifted. Chloe had fallen asleep on the couch, her latest drawing, a house with one figure inside and several outside, abandoned on the coffee table. My phone rang. Patricia. Rachel, I've been doing some digging. Did you know your sister Sarah briefly worked for the Whitmore family? My heart stopped. What? When? About 10 years ago. She was hired as an assistant for Beatrice's charity foundation. Only lasted 6 months. The employment records are vague about why she left. 10 years ago. Chloe was 9 now. Sarah had her when she was 23. The math wasn't hard. Patricia, I need you to find out everything about those 6 months. Already on it. But Rachel, there's something else. I found a sealed court record from that time. A paternity claim that was withdrawn. The room tilted. I looked at Chloe sleeping peacefully. Her dark hair. Nothing like Sarah's blonde waves now that I really looked. More like, no, it couldn't be. Find out everything. I repeated, my voice steady despite the earthquake in my chest. Everything. After I hung up, I sat watching Chloe sleep. The shape of her nose, the way she held her mouth. Had I been blind? Or had I just not wanted to see? Outside, a storm was building over the Atlantic. The metaphor was too obvious, too perfect. But sometimes life doesn't care about subtlety. Sometimes the truth comes like a hurricane, whether you're ready or not. The call came at midnight. Beatrice Whitmore, of all people, her cultured voice slurred with what sounded like whine or worse. You need to come get these boxes. I won't have her things in my house anymore. Whose things? Your sister's. From when she worked here. I want them gone by morning. The line went dead. I stared at my phone, then at Chloe sleeping in the next room. Whatever was in those boxes, Beatrice wanted them gone badly enough to break her perfect southern composure. I went alone at dawn, leaving Chloe with my neighbor. The Whitmore mansion looked different in the early morning light. Less imposing, more like what it was. An old house full of secrets. Marcus, the gardener who'd always been kind to Chloe, met me at the side entrance. Mrs. Beatrice isn't awake yet, he said quietly. The boxes are in the pool house. I'll help you load them. There were 3 boxes, covered in dust. Sarah's handwriting on the sides. Office supplies. Foundation records. Personal. Marcus, I said as we loaded them. You've been here a long time. Do you remember my sister? His face went carefully neutral. Miss Sarah was a sweet girl. Shame what happened. What happened? Besides her leaving the job? He glanced toward the main house. Some things are better left buried, Mrs. Rachel. But that little girl of yours, she deserves better than what she gets here. In my car, I couldn't wait. I tore open the box marked personal. Inside were day planners, receipts, a coffee mug with a chip on the handle, and at the bottom, wrapped in tissue paper, a photo album. The first pages were what I expected. Sarah at work events, smiling with donors, organizing fundraisers. Then the photos became more personal. Sarah and Jonathan at a restaurant. Sarah and Jonathan on a boat. Sarah and Jonathan. My hands shook as I turned the pages. The progression was clear. Professional to personal to intimate. My sister and my future husband, a year before I'd even met him. But it was the last photo that broke me. Sarah, visibly pregnant, standing in front of the Whitmore mansion, and tucked behind it, torn in half, another photo. I pieced it together with trembling fingers. It was an ultrasound. Baby Whitmore, written at the top in Sarah's handwriting. The date matched. 9 months before Chloe was born. I drove home on autopilot, the boxes like bombs in my backseat. In my office, I spread everything out. Sarah's day planner told the story in her neat script. Jay says his family will never accept it. B offered money to go away, like I'm trash to be disposed of. Jay won't return calls, 20 weeks tomorrow. Maybe Rachel was right. Maybe I should have stayed in school. Too late now. The final entry, a week before she left Charleston. They win. I won't let my baby grow up where she's not wanted. Starting over in Raleigh. Won't tell anyone. Even Rachel. Especially Rachel. She's dating someone new. Some Dr. Jonathan Whitmore. Same name. What are the odds? Can't ruin this for her. She deserves happiness. I sat back, the truth crystallizing like ice. Sarah had kept this secret to protect me. She'd carried it to her grave. And all this time, Beatrice had known. Jonathan had known. They'd let me raise his child while treating her like an outsider in her own father's home. The photo album slipped from my numb fingers, falling open to that torn ultrasound. Baby Whitmore. Chloe. My daughter. My sister's daughter. Jonathan's daughter. The ghosts of Charleston had nothing on the secrets its living kept. I planned it like I once planned interior spaces. Every detail designed for maximum impact. Chloe's healing celebration, I called it. A garden party at our beach cottage. Soft lights strung between the palms. Local catering. A jazz quartet. The kind of elegant affair the Whitmores couldn't refuse without losing face. Why are we inviting them? Chloe asked, watching me address invitations in calligraphy I'd learned for my wedding. Because sometimes, sweetheart, the best way to end something is to face it head on. She nodded solemnly, too wise for her years. Like when you're scared of the dark, you turn on the light? Exactly like that. The RSVPs came quickly. Charleston society never missed a party, especially one shrouded in delicious scandal. The ex-Mrs. Whitmore, hosting at the beach. Even Beatrice accepted, though her response card dripped with condescension. Will attend, despite the circumstances. The night arrived warm and perfect, the ocean providing a rhythmic backdrop. I wore white, a deliberate choice. New beginnings, clean slates, truth. Chloe looked like an angel in her sundress, greeting guests with a grace that made my heart ache. She was Sarah's daughter in her kindness, but those eyes, that determined chin, pure Whitmore. They arrived fashionably late, of course. Beatrice in pearls and judgment, Jonathan stiff in his seersucker, Savannah clinging to her grandmother's hand. The crowd parted subtly, everyone sensing the undercurrents. I waited until after dinner, when wine had loosened tongues and the quartet was playing something slow and nostalgic. Then I stood, tapping my glass. Thank you all for coming to celebrate Chloe's journey, I began. Family is so important, isn't it? The bonds we choose, the bonds we're born with, the secrets we keep to protect those bonds. Beatrice's face had gone pale. Good. I've recently discovered something beautiful, a photo album my sister Sarah kept. Would you like to see? I'd had the photos enlarged, displayed on easels I'd arranged that afternoon. Sarah and Jonathan. The ultrasound. The truth in sepia tones. The garden went silent except for the waves. My sister, I continued, voice steady, worked for the Whitmore Foundation 10 years ago. She fell in love with Jonathan. She carried his child. She left when it became clear that child would never be accepted, would never be seen as real family. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Jonathan stood frozen, his face a mask I'd once mistaken for composure but now recognized as cowardice. That child is Chloe, my daughter, my sister's daughter, Jonathan's daughter. This is outrageous! Beatrice's voice cracked like a whip. These are fabrications, desperate lies from a bitter ex-wife. I kept the ultrasound, Beatrice. Sarah wrote Baby Whitmore on it, your son's name. The dates match. Jonathan finally spoke, his voice barely audible. I suspected. When I saw her, she looks like you, I finished. She has your eyes, your chin, Sarah's kindness, but your determination. Chloe stood suddenly, her chair scraping. You're my father? The pain in her voice broke through Jonathan's paralysis. Chloe, But she was already running, disappearing into the darkness beyond the party lights. Jonathan and I both moved to follow, then stopped, looking at each other across years of lies. You knew, I said. It wasn't a question. I wondered. But Mother said she handled it. She handled it by paying my sister to disappear, by letting you marry me, by treating your own daughter like a servant. Beatrice drew herself up, every inch the offended matriarch. We don't know she's his. There's no proof. Then let's get proof, I said. DNA test, unless you're afraid of what we'll find. The party was disintegrating, guests murmuring excuses and fleeing. But I didn't care. The truth was finally in the light, ugly and healing all at once. We need to find Chloe, Jonathan said. For once, we agreed on something. We found her at Breach Inlet, where the currents were dangerous, but the moon was bright. She sat on a piece of driftwood, knees drawn up, looking so small against the vast darkness of the ocean. Don't come closer, she said without turning. Either of you. Jonathan and I stopped, standing awkwardly apart like strangers. Which, I realized, we'd always been. Chloe, sweetheart, I started. Am I anyone's real daughter? Her voice was raw. Or am I just something everyone got stuck with? The words hit like physical blows. I moved despite her warning, sitting in the sand near, but not touching her. After a moment, Jonathan did the same on her other side. You want to know what real is? I said. Real is getting up at 3 a.m. when you had nightmares. Real is learning to braid hair from YouTube videos. Real is choosing you, every day, even when it was hard. But you had to, she whispered. Because of Aunt Sarah. No, I chose to. There's a difference. Jonathan cleared his throat. I failed you. Before you were even born. I was young and scared, and I let my mother. You let Grandma Beatrice treat me like garbage. Chloe turned to him, tears streaming. You watched it happen. Yes. The words seemed to physically pain him. I did. I told myself it wasn't my place, that I couldn't be sure, that I was a coward. The honesty surprised me. The Jonathan I'd married would never have admitted weakness. So what now? Chloe asked. Do I have to call you Dad? Do I have to pretend we're a family? No, I said firmly. You don't have to do anything. But maybe we can figure out what we are. The three of us. 4, Jonathan corrected quietly. Savannah, she's your half-sister. She deserves to know. Chloe was quiet for a long moment. Then, does this mean I'm a real Whitmore? You were always real, I said. Blood doesn't make you real. Love does. But the blood helps with Grandma Beatrice? Jonathan laughed bitterly. Nothing helps with my mother. But yes, if you're proven to be my daughter, she'll have to adjust her worldview. I want the test. Chloe stood, brushing sand from her dress. Not because I need proof, because I want her to have to look at me and know. The next days blurred together. Patricia, my lawyer, handled the legal aspects. The DNA test was swift, clinical. While we waited for results, Chloe stayed close to me but watched Jonathan with new eyes. He tried, awkwardly. Showed up with art supplies because he'd heard she liked drawing. Asked about school, her friends, her dreams. It was stilted, painful, but it was something. Beatrice, meanwhile, had gone silent. The Charleston gossip mill was churning, and the Whitmore reputation was taking hits. Good. The results came on a Tuesday. Patricia called me, then Jonathan. 99.97% probability of paternity. That evening, Jonathan came by with papers. Full custody transfer, he said. You're her mother in every way that matters. But I'd like, if you're willing, visitation. to try to build something. I looked at Chloe, who nodded slowly. Supervised at first, I said. And family therapy. All of us. What about Grandma Beatrice? Chloe asked. Jonathan's face hardened. She's made her choices. Now she lives with the consequences. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't a happy ending. But it was a start. The bloodline trap had been sprung, and we were all, finally, free to choose what family meant. The letter was in a safety deposit box I didn't know existed. Marcus, the gardener, had slipped me the key the day I'd picked up Sarah's boxes. She asked me to give this to you, he'd said quietly, if anything ever happened to her. I've been waiting 10 years to keep that promise. Now sitting in Chloe's room while she slept, I held Sarah's last words with trembling hands. My dearest Rachel, if you're reading this, then I'm gone and you probably have Chloe. I know you will. You were always the strong one, the one who kept promises. There are things I need you to know. Things I couldn't say while I was alive because I was a coward. Yes, Jonathan is Chloe's father. We had a brief affair while I worked for his family. I fell in love. He said he did too. When I told him I was pregnant, everything changed. Beatrice came to me with a check and threats. Jonathan stood behind her, silent. They wanted me gone. The baby was an inconvenience, a mistake, a scandal. I almost told you then, but that same week you called me so happy. You'd met someone at that medical conference. A doctor. Jonathan Whitmore. The universe has a cruel sense of humor, doesn't it? I couldn't destroy your happiness. So I left. Told everyone Chloe's father was some random guy who'd abandoned us. Let you believe I was just another young single mom who'd made bad choices. But here's what I need you to understand. Chloe wasn't a mistake. She was loved from the moment I knew she existed. Every kick, every ultrasound, every sleepless night, she was wanted. I'm not asking you to forgive Jonathan or his horrible mother. But if something happens to me, if you end up raising my daughter, just let her know she was born from love, even if that love was weak and failed her. You're the only person I trust with her. You always saw people for who they could be, not just who they were. Maybe that's why you married him. Maybe that's why I know you'll love her. She likes to be sung to sleep. You are my sunshine, our mom's version, with the made-up third verse. She's afraid of thunderstorms, but pretends she's not. She needs to know she's chosen, every day, because somehow, even as a baby, she seems to sense she wasn't chosen by everyone. Choose her, Rachel. Love her. And when the truth comes out, because truth always does, tell her that her mama loved her more than all the stars. Forever your sister, Sarah. P.S. I kept evidence. Photos, recordings of Beatrice's threats, the check I never cashed. It's in the blue folder, just in case. I set the letter down and moved to Chloe's bed. She stirred as I sat beside her. Bad dream? She mumbled. No, baby, just wanted to check on you. Sing the song? I smoothed her hair and began. You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. As I sang our mother's made-up verse about stars dancing and moonbeams playing, I thought about Sarah. About the choices we make for love. About the secrets we keep and the ones that keep us. Tomorrow, Jonathan would come for his first supervised visit. Tomorrow, we'd start family therapy. Tomorrow, Beatrice would receive legal notice that she was barred from contact pending psychological evaluation. But tonight, there was just this. A mother, a daughter, and a lullaby that connected 3 generations of women who'd learned that family was more than blood. It was choice. It was sacrifice. It was love that persisted beyond death, beyond secrets, beyond the failures of those who should have known better. More than all the stars? Chloe whispered our ritual. More than all the stars, baby, always. 6 months later, I stood in my new Charleston gallery, watching Chloe explain her painting to a group of visitors. The piece was called Visible, a self-portrait where she'd painted herself in vivid, bold colors, no longer the gray figure at the edges. Chloe's Light had opened 3 weeks ago, a gallery dedicated to art by children who'd experienced family trauma. The therapy had been Chloe's idea, but she'd suggested we share it. Other kids feel invisible too, she'd said. Maybe art can help them be seen. Jonathan stood near the door, still awkward in these spaces but trying. He'd been to every therapy session, faced every hard truth about his complicity. Savannah was with him, the two girls slowly building a relationship that had nothing to do with Beatrice's poisonous influence. The DNA test had shattered Beatrice's carefully constructed world. She'd tried to contest it, claimed laboratory error, threatened lawsuits. But Charleston society had already made its judgment. The woman who'd denied her own granddaughter was now the one on the outside looking in. "Mom!" Chloe called out. "Come tell them about the youth program." I joined her, my hand naturally finding her shoulder. "We're starting art therapy workshops next month. Free for any child who needs them. My daughter here will be the junior assistant. Because I know what it's like," Chloe added simply, "to feel like you don't belong anywhere." A woman in the crowd dabbed at her eyes. These openings always drew emotional responses. Pain recognized pain, but more importantly, healing recognized hope. After the crowd dispersed, Jonathan approached. "She's remarkable," he said quietly. "Despite everything, because of you." "Because of her," I corrected. "She chose to survive, to thrive. We just finally gave her the space to do it." Patricia had done her job well. Full custody was mine, with Jonathan having gradually increasing visitation. He'd moved to a smaller practice, stepping away from the Whitmore medical dynasty. "Started fresh," he said. "It was time." "I have something," he said, pulling out an envelope. "From my mother." I tensed, but he held up a hand. "I haven't read it, but her lawyer said she's reconsidering things. The isolation has been hard on her." "That's not my problem." "No, but maybe someday it could be Chloe's choice. When she's ready, if she ever is." I took the envelope, tucking it away. Maybe someday, maybe never. That was the thing about choice. It was ours to make. As the evening wound down, Chloe and I walked along the Charleston harbor, the same path I'd taken when I first fled the Whitmore mansion with her. So much had changed. So much had healed. "You know what's funny?" Chloe said, swinging our joined hands. "Grandma Beatrice was so worried about blood, but blood just makes you related. It doesn't make you family." "When did you get so wise?" "When you showed me I was worth choosing." We stopped at our favorite bench, watching the sunset paint the sky in impossible colors. Chloe pulled out her phone to text Savannah about their weekend plans. Jonathan would take them to the aquarium, neutral ground where they could just be sisters. "Hey, Mom." Chloe looked up from her phone. "I don't care who gave me life. You gave me love. That's all that matters." I pulled her close, breathing in the moment. My sister's daughter, Jonathan's daughter, but most importantly, unquestionably, irrevocably my daughter. More than all the stars," I whispered. "More than all the stars," she confirmed. "Always." In the distance, church bells chimed the hour. Charleston continued its ancient rhythms, but we'd written our own story within its borders. A story of chosen family, of truth over tradition, of love that didn't need blood to be real. We were home,